A few years ago, success had limits.
You only compared yourself to the people in your neighborhood, your office, maybe a few relatives at family gatherings. Now, before you even brush your teeth in the morning, you can watch someone your age driving a luxury car in Dubai, another person buying their dream apartment, someone else posting first-class travel photos, designer shopping bags, expensive dinners, and captions about financial freedom. And if you're not careful, your brain quietly starts whispering, "Everyone is moving ahead except me." That feeling is becoming incredibly common. Not because people are failing financially, but because we are living in an environment where wealth is constantly being displayed, often without context, without truth, and without transparency. Here's what most people don't realize. We are the first generation in history exposed to thousands of people's financial highlight reels every single day. And the human brain was never designed for that level of comparison. Because comparison used to be local. Now it's global. You are comparing your real life to curated snapshots from people across the world. People with different incomes, different family support systems, different debt levels, different opportunities, and completely different realities. Yet emotionally, it still feels personal. Someone buys a car online, and suddenly your perfectly fine car feels inadequate. Someone posts a luxury vacation, and your normal weekend feels boring. Someone announces they bought a home at 27, and suddenly your own progress feels delayed. But what you're seeing is rarely the full financial picture. You see the purchase. You don't see the payment plan. You see the holiday. You don't see the credit card debt. You see the apartment keys. You don't see the family money behind the deposit. And this is where people begin making dangerous financial decisions, not because they truly want something, but because they feel emotionally pressured to keep up. That pressure is expensive. People start financing lifestyles they haven't financially built yet. They upgrade phones they cannot comfortably afford. They lease cars to look successful. They spend money to avoid feeling behind. And the scary part is that modern culture actually rewards this behavior. Social media platforms don't reward financial stability. They reward visibility. Nobody goes viral for building an emergency fund, maxing out retirement contributions, staying out of debt, or living below their means. Those things are financially intelligent, but visually boring. Instead, we celebrate consumption. We mistake spending for success. And over time, people begin performing wealth instead of building it. But real wealth and visible wealth are often completely different things. A person with a luxury watch may have no savings. A person living modestly may have 6 months of expenses invested quietly in the background. A person posting soft life content may actually be financially stressed every single month. You simply do not know. And that's important to remember, because comparison becomes toxic when you compare your entire financial reality to someone else's edited moments. Most people online are not showing balance sheets. They are showing branding. In many cases, lifestyle itself has become content. Think about how often people buy things now partly because they are Instagrammable. Restaurants, holidays, clothes, cars, apartments. Sometimes the purchase is less about enjoyment and more about social proof. The problem is that when everyone starts displaying their best moments simultaneously, it creates the illusion that everybody else is constantly winning. But statistically, that cannot be true. In fact, many people who appear wealthy are financially fragile. A lot of high earners still live paycheck to paycheck. A lot of people with expensive lifestyles have little to no investments. A lot of people carrying luxury items are also carrying anxiety. But financial stress is invisible. Debt is invisible. Insecurity is invisible. So naturally, your brain fills in the gaps and assumes, they must be doing better than me. And once that belief settles in, people stop appreciating their own progress. They ignore the savings they've built, the discipline they've developed, the financial mistakes they've avoided, because they're too busy measuring themselves against an illusion. The truth is, you are probably doing far better than you think, but your perception has been distorted by constant exposure to other people's highlight reels. And this is why financial confidence today is no longer just about income. It's about protecting your attention. Because if you constantly consume content designed to make you feel inadequate, you will always feel poor, regardless of how much money you make. The solution is not to stop being ambitious. The solution is to stop using strangers on the internet as the measuring stick for your self-worth. Because real financial success is not about looking rich for public approval. It's about building a life where money gives you peace instead of pressure. One of the biggest financial traps today is not low income. It's invisible pressure. The pressure to keep up, to upgrade, to look successful, to prove that your life is moving forward. And social media has intensified that pressure in a way most people don't even realize. Because every day we consume hundreds of images of people appearing wealthy, stylish, productive, and financially free. But what's dangerous is that our brains don't naturally process this content as entertainment. We process it as evidence that everyone else is somehow doing better financially. So even if your own life is stable, even if your bills are paid, even if you're progressing slowly and responsibly, it can still feel like you're falling behind. That's because modern culture has blurred the line between wealth and consumption. We now associate expensive lifestyles with financial success automatically. If someone has luxury clothes, expensive dinners, business class flights, aesthetic apartments, designer shopping bags, we assume they must be financially successful. But appearance has become incredibly easy to finance. And that changes everything. A lot of people are not buying lifestyles with cash anymore. They're buying them with monthly payments. Cars are financed, phones are financed, furniture is financed, vacations are financed. Even everyday purchases are now split into installments. So what you're often seeing online is not necessarily wealth. It's access to debt. And there's a huge difference between the two. Real wealth is ownership. Fake wealth is expensive borrowing disguised as status. But because social media only shows the visible outcome, not the financial structure behind it, people begin comparing themselves unfairly. You see someone driving a luxury car. You don't see the 5-year payment agreement. You see someone posting shopping hauls. You don't see the anxiety when the credit card bill arrives. You see a beautifully designed apartment. You don't see the financial stress hidden behind closed doors. And over time, this constant exposure creates something psychologists call financial dissatisfaction. Even when your needs are met, you feel inadequate because your expectations keep shifting upward. This is why someone earning twice as much as they did 5 years ago can still feel financially insecure. Not because they lack money, but because comparison expanded faster than gratitude. And platforms are designed to encourage this. Think about it carefully. Social media algorithms benefit when you feel emotionally activated. Envy keeps people scrolling. Aspiration keeps people consuming. And industries profit when people feel like they are not enough yet. That's why modern marketing rarely sells products anymore. It sells identities. A watch is no longer just a watch. It's success. A car is no longer transportation. It's status. A vacation is no longer rest. It's proof you're winning at life. And once people emotionally attach self-worth to spending, financial discipline becomes extremely difficult. Because now saving money feels like deprivation instead of intelligence. Meanwhile, many genuinely wealthy people behave very differently from what social media portrays. They are often quieter, more intentional, less concerned with appearances. Because financially intelligent people understand a simple principle. Every pound, dollar, or rupee spent on looking rich is money no longer available for becoming rich. That's why true wealth often looks surprisingly ordinary in the beginning. It looks like budgeting, investing consistently, delaying gratification, saying no to unnecessary upgrades, living below your means. None of that is glamorous online, but those behaviors create long-term freedom. The irony is that many people trying hardest to appear wealthy are actually sacrificing future wealth to maintain current appearances. And this creates a cycle. People spend to impress others. Others feel inadequate watching them. Then they overspend too. It becomes a chain reaction of financial performance. But the reality behind many lifestyles is far less perfect than it appears. Financial stress has become incredibly normalized. Many people earning high incomes are still trapped in cycles of debt because their spending rises alongside their salary. The moment they earn more, they upgrade everything. The car, the apartment, the wardrobe, the restaurants, the vacations. So despite higher income, they never actually build financial security. Their lifestyle grows, but their freedom doesn't. And this is why someone earning a moderate income with strong financial habits can actually be wealthier than someone earning significantly more but spending recklessly. Because wealth is not determined by how much money passes through your hands. It's determined by how much you keep, grow, and protect. The most financially dangerous habit is making spending decisions emotionally instead of intentionally. Buying things because they align with your values is healthy. Buying things because you fear appearing unsuccessful is expensive. And many people don't realize how much of their spending is driven by social comparison rather than genuine happiness. That's why one of the most powerful financial skills today is the ability to disconnect your self-worth from your lifestyle. Because once you stop trying to prove something to strangers online, money starts behaving differently. You stop chasing appearances. You stop buying temporary validation. And you finally begin building something far more valuable than attention. Stability, freedom, and peace of mind. One of the most damaging financial beliefs people carry is the idea that they are too late. Too late to start investing. Too late to build wealth. Too late to fix their finances. Too late compared to everyone else. And the reason this belief feels so convincing is because society has created imaginary timelines for success. By 25, you should have savings. By 30, you should own property. By 35, you should be financially secure. So when your life doesn't match those milestones exactly, it can feel like you've somehow failed. But money does not follow a universal timeline. And wealth creation is rarely linear. What most people don't see is that financial journeys happen at completely different speeds, depending on circumstances, opportunities, education, location, family background, and timing. Some people start investing at 18 because they were taught financial literacy early. Others spend their 20s simply trying to survive financially. Some people receive family support, inheritances, or connections that accelerate their progress dramatically. Others are supporting parents, paying off debt, or rebuilding after financial mistakes. So comparing timelines without comparing circumstances is deeply unfair. Yet people do it constantly. Someone sees a 26-year-old entrepreneur online and suddenly feels inadequate at 32. Someone else sees friends buying homes and starts questioning their entire life. But comparison ignores context, and context changes everything. The truth is, financial success is not determined only by when you start. It's determined by what you consistently do after you start. Because wealth is less about dramatic moments and more about repeated behavior. Small decisions repeated over years become massive outcomes. Genui, math block widget, always prefetch, V2, content, A piece left, 1 pus, frac are no right, not. That formula represents one of the most important principles in finance, compounding. And compounding works quietly. At first, progress feels invisible. You save a little, invest a little, reduce debt slowly, improve your habits gradually. Nothing looks impressive immediately. This is the stage where most people quit because they confuse slow progress with no progress. But financially successful people understand something powerful. The beginning is supposed to look boring. In fact, the early years of wealth building often feel emotionally unrewarding because the visible results are small compared to the effort required. You budget carefully but still don't feel wealthy. You invest consistently, but your portfolio seems tiny. You avoid unnecessary spending while others appear to enjoy life freely. And this creates temptation. Temptation to give up on long-term thinking and chase short-term appearances instead. But the people who build lasting wealth usually tolerate this invisible phase longer than everyone else. They understand that money grows exponentially, not instantly. A tree doesn't become massive overnight. It spends years growing roots first. And financially, roots matter more than appearances. Because without strong financial foundations, savings habits, emotional discipline, investing consistency, low consumer debt, patience, high income alone rarely creates lasting wealth. This is why many people earning impressive salaries still remain financially stressed. Income can increase quickly, but financial behavior often doesn't. And behavior is what determines long-term outcomes. Someone earning a moderate income who invests consistently for 15 years can outperform someone earning double but spending impulsively. Because wealth creation is often more behavioral than mathematical. The challenge is that modern culture celebrates visible success immediately. We admire outcomes. We rarely admire the years of quiet discipline behind them. Nobody sees the years someone lived below their means, the weekends they stayed home instead of overspending, the sacrifices they made, the consistency they maintained. People only notice the final result, and because they don't see the process, they assume success happened quickly. But most financial success stories are built slowly, privately, and sometimes painfully. There are people who look financially successful today who spent years recovering from debt. People who own businesses now who once struggled to pay rent. People investing confidently today who started embarrassingly late. The difference is not perfection. The difference is persistence. And this is why believing you are behind can become more dangerous than your actual financial situation. Because once people emotionally decide they are too late, they stop taking action. They avoid investing because they think they missed the opportunity. They avoid learning because they feel embarrassed. They stop believing small improvements matter. But financially, even delayed action is usually far more powerful than inaction. A person who starts investing at 35 consistently is still dramatically ahead of someone who waits until 45. A person improving financial habits today is still changing their future. And the reality is that most people dramatically underestimate how much life can change financially within 5 or 10 years of focused behavior. One promotion can increase income significantly. One business idea can create opportunity. One investment habit can completely alter retirement outcomes. 1 year of discipline can eliminate debt that has caused stress for years. Progress compounds emotionally as well as financially. That's why the goal should never be to catch up to someone else's timeline. The goal is to make your future better than your present. Because wealth is not a race against strangers online. It's a long-term relationship between your habits, your patience, and your ability to keep going even when progress feels slow. And the people who eventually build financial freedom are often not the ones who started earliest. They're the ones who refuse to stop. At some point, every financially successful person makes a mental shift. They stop asking, "How do I look successful?" And they start asking, "How do I become financially secure?" That shift changes everything. Because for most people, money decisions are deeply emotional before they are logical. People don't just buy products. They buy feelings. The feeling of status. The feeling of belonging. The feeling of being admired. The feeling of finally making it. And when your financial decisions are driven by external validation, money becomes very difficult to control. You spend to impress people you barely know. You upgrade things that don't improve your actual life. You chase appearances that require constant maintenance. The problem is that there is no finish line to that game, because there will always be someone richer, more stylish, more successful, or more visible online. So if your financial confidence depends on outperforming strangers, you will never feel financially satisfied. This is why comparison quietly destroys peace. Not because ambition is bad, but because comparison shifts your focus away from your own progress. Instead of appreciating how far you've come, you obsess over how far someone else appears to be ahead. And when people constantly feel behind, they often make reactive financial decisions. They overspend emotionally. They rush investments they don't understand. They panic about timelines. They take unnecessary financial risks. But wealth is rarely built through panic. It's built through control. Control over spending. Control over emotions. Control over impulses. Control over attention. And this is where financial maturity begins. Not when you earn your first big paycheck, but when you stop needing your lifestyle to prove your worth. Because real financial confidence is quiet. It doesn't need constant validation. A financially grounded person can sit in a room with wealthier people and still feel secure because their identity is no longer tied to appearances. That's an incredibly powerful place to reach. And usually, it happens when people begin focusing on internal goals instead of external competition. For example, instead of asking, "Do I look rich?" they ask, "Am I financially stable? Can I survive an emergency? Am I building investments? Can I support the life I actually want? Am I buying freedom or just temporary excitement?" Those are entirely different questions, and they lead to entirely different outcomes. One of the biggest misconceptions about wealth is that rich people spend freely all the time. In reality, many wealthy individuals are highly intentional with money, not because they fear spending, but because they understand opportunity cost. Every financial decision has a hidden trade-off. Money spent today is money that cannot grow tomorrow. That doesn't mean never enjoying life. It means spending consciously rather than emotionally. Because emotional spending is often an attempt to solve non-financial problems. Loneliness becomes shopping. Stress becomes luxury purchases. Insecurity becomes status symbols. Boredom becomes impulse spending. And companies understand this extremely well. Modern marketing is designed to make you feel incomplete without constant upgrades. Upgrade your phone. Upgrade your wardrobe. Upgrade your car. Upgrade your lifestyle. But very few people ask, is this improving my life or just improving my image? That question alone can save people thousands. Financial freedom is not built through endless upgrading. It's built through alignment. Alignment between your values, your priorities, your spending, and your long-term goals. Because once your money starts supporting your actual values instead of social pressure, finances become much calmer. You stop performing. You stop chasing. You stop trying to win invisible competitions. And instead, you begin creating a life that genuinely fits you. That may look different from everyone else. And that's okay. Some people genuinely value luxury travel. Others value flexibility and free time. Some prioritize owning property. Others prioritize mobility and experiences. Personal finance is personal. There is no universal blueprint for success. The danger comes when people adopt lifestyles they don't even truly want, simply because those lifestyles are socially admired. And many people spend years funding versions of success that don't actually make them happy. That's why self-awareness is one of the most underrated financial skills. Because the more clarity you have about what genuinely matters to you, the less vulnerable you become to financial manipulation. You stop buying things for approval. You start building for peace. And peace is incredibly underrated financially. The peace of knowing your bills are covered, your debt is manageable, your future is improving, and your life is not dependent on impressing others. That peace is worth far more than temporary status. At the end of the day, the goal of money is not performance. It's freedom. Freedom to make choices calmly. Freedom to walk away from unhealthy situations. Freedom to support the people you love. Freedom to build a life that feels authentic instead of performative. And once you understand that, comparison starts losing its power. Because you realize the purpose of wealth was never to win a public competition. It was to create a private sense of security, stability, and control over your own life.